And now from our studios in downtown Winnipeg, it's time for 107 Live.
There you have it. Richard Gillis on the trumpet, on the trombone, Chris Butcher. Chris is in town to perform with the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra. Richard Gillis, the music director of the WJO, long-time music director of the WJO. Bourbon Street Parade is the name of the concert on Sunday, 2 o'clock and 7:30, at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. So welcome to the studio to you both. Richard, welcome
Hi.
back. Chris, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Great to have you back in town and in our studios.
Hey, it's beautiful to be back in Winnipeg. We had some nice weather yesterday, and it's continuing to today. And it's nice to get out of that heat and
Get out of the heat of New Orleans. You're living in New Orleans now, aren't you?
I moved down there January of 2017, and it's an experience. What can we say? It's a beautiful city. It's the birthplace of jazz music, birthplace of so much American music, and but it's nice to be back home.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, a lot of guys, when they leave Winnipeg, or they often think of Toronto, they think of New York, they think of other places. Not a lot of people head down to New Orleans. So what was your decision to head down there?
Yeah, I mean, the roots of the music are something that really appeal to me. I've spent, I actually went down with my family. This was pre-Katrina. I was 18, and we went on a family vacation down through the States. And we stayed on one side of the French Quarter, and we walked through, and we went to Snug Harbor and saw Delphio Marsalis at Snug Harbor. And then I just remember seeing these musicians playing on the street, and it was just like, I'd never seen anything like it. There were people in wheelchairs playing on a street corner doing things I'd never heard. And then you'd see a brass band of kids at Canal and Bourbon. And, it might be 5 trumpet players and 3 trombone players and a tuba and drums and just, out on the street playing music off the top of their heads. And I never really experienced that, I would say. And to me, there was an appeal. And, I went down and visited several times, spent a week there between tours that I was on a few years back, went down and studied with Delphio Marsalis for a couple months. In 2016, went back, I was actually living in Toronto at that point, went back to Toronto, and it just kept pulling at me. I love the music scene in Toronto, and it's beautiful, and I love the music scene here, but I just felt I kind of had to be in New Orleans for a bit, so there was this magnetic pull.
So how long have you been playing the trombone for?
I started when I was 12. We actually have a member of the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra, Mr. Darren Ritchie, who started me at George McDowell School. And, So
it was about as big as you at the time?
Yeah, I may have been trombone shorty at the time, I remember I couldn't reach 7th position. 6th was even maybe stretching it. So, I was, I was really short as a kid, actually, too. So, my parents are big music fans, and I took piano lessons as a kid, and after I started playing trombone, I remember going out to the the West End Cultural Center, and seeing the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra as a junior high student. That must have been the first year or two in existence. And my father would take me out to all the jazz shows in town, and he has a record collection that I'd listen to. And the rest is history, you just kind of get sucked in.
So what's life like down in New Orleans right now for you?
It's beautiful, you know. There's so much music, and there's a really strong live music scene, and there's a lot of work. So, you know, I mainly, you know, you might have a brunch gig at 11, and then I'll go home, sit down for a minute, and then I'm playing the Treme Fall Festival with a band out on the street, and then I might have a wedding gig that night with a salsa group like Rumba Buena. You know, that might be my typical Saturday. And there's a street called Frenchman Street where there's, in about 3 or 4 blocks, there might be 12 or 15 clubs, and they all have 3 or 4 bands a day. So, you know, if you go out there, there's probably 200 musicians working on that street that night. And it just kind of sucks you in, you know, and there's so much going on that I might get a text of, oh, the trombone player didn't show up to the gig. Can you make it to the 30 by 90 in 15 minutes or now? Or there's a wedding second line in an hour. Can you do that, you know? So it's very different from Toronto or Winnipeg, where almost everything I do is booked 3 months in advance, you know? You kind of got to...
No last-minute calls?
Not as often, you know?
Yeah.
So kind of learn to roll with the punches and make it up as we go along, because that's, you know, what we do in this music.
Improvise.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyway, welcome back, and thanks for coming in this morning and playing us a bit of music and having a chat. Chatting with Chris Butcher, who's in town back in town to perform with Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra. Let's swing the mic over to Richard. Richard, hey, welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back. So, Bourbon Street Parade. When's the last time you guys have done a sort of a straight-ahead New Orleans concert like this? It's been a while, huh?
I don't know. I could barely remember what we did last year. So,
as long as you can remember what you're doing now, that's fine.
Exactly. Where I'm supposed to be next. The next concert.
I can't tell you. But anyway, so tell us a bit about the music.
So, you know, it just seemed like the logical thing when we got Chris on the gig to make this a theme. We'll do some other things as well. We have Al Kay, and who's going to do some great stuff that he's, you know, many of his arrangements. And so it'll be a mix, but it's definitely you're gonna start off with New Orleans, and we're gonna finish off with New Orleans, and what happens in between is still related to New Orleans.
Yeah,
so it all is, right?
That,
it'll be a lot of fun, I think. So, you know,
tell us about Al Kay.
Al Kay's a world-renowned trombone player. He's just, I mean, sometimes
he teaches at Humber College.
Yeah, he teaches at Humber College. Sometimes some musicians are kind of magicians, aren't they? The way they play the horns. And Al's one of those guys. If you're a trombone player or know anything about trombone, you can be amazed.
Yeah, Al is a powerhouse. There's very few people who play like him. One thing I would like to say is, you know, so I spent some years living in Toronto, and the reason I moved out to Toronto was Al came here to do a concert with the Winnipeg Symphony, and I took a lesson with him, and you know, he plays the trombone at a level that very few have ever played it, you know, and, you know, he's the guy in Toronto, all those Boss Brass recordings that he did, and he just sets the bar for the trombone so high that, you know, it's an honor to be on this concert with him, and we did a classical concert last night, and every time I hear him, it's just like, okay, there's a bar to aspire to.
So he was with Rob McConnell and Boss Brass for a while, huh?
Yeah. He when Ian McDougall left, he kind of became lead trombone.
Okay.
And he's probably Canada's studio trombone player. So
he can do everything.
Yeah. I mean, all the jingles you heard out of Toronto, he can do anything. He's a extremely accomplished classical player. And extremely accomplished studio and jazz player.
Okay, so it's Al Kay and you, 2 trombonists, adding to all the other horns.
Yep.
Belonging for the WJO, all Bourbon Street.
All Bourbon Street?
Mostly Bourbon Street.
Right. You know, with all those trombones, we just got to make a little more space on stage with those slides, you know.
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess they're going to be in the front row, not in the back. Are you guys in the back row?
We'll have to make sure the front row of people, maybe we just keep that open so that...
Well, people can't see, but my trombone does have a little rubber bumper on the end.
Oh,
so
good,
that's for their safety, not for...
So no one gets bruised.
Yeah, you know.
Maybe banged up a little bit, but just not full on bruised.
Shouldn't pierce the skin or anything, you know. It's...
All right. I'm in conversation with Richard Gillis and Chris Butcher. They're performing this weekend on Sunday. There's 2 concerts, 2 o'clock and 7:30. It's called Bourbon Street Parade. You can go to winnipegjazzorchestra.com for information and tickets. Now, before you guys take off, I wanted to ask if you'd play one more tune.
Will do.
All right. Here we have it. Hey, all right. You want more of that, go and check them out. Bourbon Street Parade, Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra. This weekend, it's at 2 o'clock and 7:30 at the Art Gallery, and you can go to winnipegjazzorchestra.com for more information and tickets. Thank you guys for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
It's always fun and lively. It doesn't happen often. I don't get a lot of New Orleans jazz first thing in the morning, so...
We'll
We'll
come
just
back
keep playing.
any, yeah. You need us tomorrow?
All right, yeah, you guys are welcome back.
I'm here till Monday, but...
I'll fit you in between Mozart and Beethoven and
Perfect.
Tchaikovsky somewhere in
It's
there.
all good music.
All right, thank you guys.
From our studios in downtown Winnipeg, you've been listening to 107 Live, Classic 107's Intimate Concert Series, the soundtrack for your life.